coming off of what I dubbed the biggest win for the Jags, and Trevor Lawrence is in his entire career. They have a game in which miscues and a ton of mental errors lead to a tough loss to the Seahawks, and going forward, that can't happen. For the Jags, this was just a game that honestly their miscues from the beginning of the game just cost them. In a way, you can't have these mistakes against a team like Seattle that's really, really good, 3-2, well-coached, top-end defense, and they also have a prolific offense. Now, last week, a couple weeks ago, didn't look like prolific defense because they were playing against Baker Mayfield, and the Bucs were kind of cooking them. However, this week, you could kind of see why that defense was so effective. And the miscues that the Jags had were really just cooking them throughout the entire game. There were so many penalties on special teams where they would try to have a return and there would be a holding. There were, I counted 3 special teams penalties, blocking the backs, holdings, in which they just ended up with the ball on their own 10-yard line. And that's just a tough place to operate because you can't really, your offense isn't really all open. You're kind of just worried, obviously, about getting a safety, and you don't want to turn it over in that situation as well, which Trevor actually did a solid job not doing that, but they just couldn't really get anything to move. Then when the plays did start, they were having a bunch of holdings as well, just big plays getting taken back. One in particular, obviously Travis Hunter being off sides when they tried to throw it deep to Byron Thomas, and he caught a huge touchdown. Now, luckily for them, they scored on that drive anyway, even though they lost some clock. But that kind of was just indicative of the entire game. And a lot of the stuff, you could argue, ticky-tack, holding, and that they were grabbing all game for a reason, which we'll get to that. But holdings, legal formations, but it was clear from the word go that the refs were going to call this one tighter. I mean, Seattle had 7 penalties. But what you can't have is what the Jags had, 10 penalties, 76 penalty yards. They were just shooting themselves in the foot. And their offense isn't efficient enough to deal with that, especially when their running game just wasn't getting it going. And every time it did, there just seemed to be a big penalty on them. So not the game that you want going out there with all of those miscues and everything going on. And just for the Jags, I think going forward, that's just going to be something that Liam Cohen definitely has to learn and kind of teach. I think throughout the season, they haven't had a game like with that many penalties. Even against the Chiefs, they kind of kept it reined in. But in this game specifically, it kind of unraveled, and they're just going to have to clean those things up. Now the offensive line had their own issues. We'll get to them in a minute. But another big issue for the Jags in this game specifically, Cam Little. Now, we should mention this. The new kicking footballs they said would make it easier to kick. Cam Little has not found that to be the case at all. 2 field goal misses for him the entire year last year. This season, he already has 3. And the one that he missed was, I think it was a 30-yard, like right before half, was bad. And they needed all of those. Yeah, he missed a short field goal, and he missed an extra point. And in a game that ended up being 20-12, those points were critical. Now, the Seahawks could have scored more points toward the end. They got down the field. They were going to need it, yada, yada. But just them being that distance, it changed their options. You could see later in the game, they went for 2. I don't know if they would have done that if they thought that their kicker could make a kick. And that definitely changed the tenor of the game. You make an extra point and you hit a field goal, you're only down 4. Maybe you're able to run the ball a little bit longer. So Cam Little, definitely, he's going to have to get it together going forward, because not a great start to the season for him. He's going to have to learn about these new kicking footballs and get better at kicking them. However, the biggest issue for the Jags, because their defense was playing solid, you know what I mean? They let JSN cook them, and Strapsonville didn't work the exact way you wanted. Greg Newsome came in and got torched down the field by JSN. JSN had 162 receiving yards. That can't happen, but he seems to be doing that to everyone now. So even though you want better defense on that, they still didn't let up too many points. They were able to stop the run. They got off the field at big moments, and they held the Seahawks to 20 without getting their patented turnovers. That offensive line was just getting absolutely whooped the entire game. They couldn't do anything. They weren't giving Trevor Lawrence really a chance the entire ball game. He was getting screamed at. 7 sacks on the day, and there are other people at high sacks numbers. Sometimes when you see that, that's on the quarterback. Let me tell you, it was instantaneous. I mean, my gosh. So what they were doing was they were running games on the right end with Leonard Williams, and I forget who their best pass rusher is, but on that right end they were running games, and on the left end, their left guard, let me look up his name. The Jags left guard was a complete turnstile the entire game. You're watching, and once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. He was getting cooked. So for them and the Seahawks, they do have a great defensive line of getting pressure. They are 3rd in the league in sacks, so not like it's a huge surprise, but you can't get dominated. Nwasu, yes, they're running games with Nwasu and Leonard Williams on the left side, and with Byron Murphy with them on the left side, and Byron Murphy. Just at D tackle, their second D tackle, he's just absolutely destroying the left guard. And we at least saw last week, like Trevor had a little bit of time. The offensive line seemed to hold up very well. Just not the case this game. Now, part of the issue was their starting center was out, and that was huge. Maybe their communication was messed up, but and they couldn't quite communicate on those stunts. But on the left, on both, when you're getting attacked from both sides like that, and then when you finally do get a play, that's why the holdings were happening, because the only way they could get any time was they had to grab people. So 7 sacks, just again, not what you want to see. And yes, Seattle is great at getting to the quarterback and getting pressure with 4. They actually blitz the least amount in the league. That is not at all what you want to see. And their offensive line just has got to be better going forward from that position. Now for the Jags, not all bad. You lost to a good team in Seattle. The problem is now you go overseas in London, ya blokes, and they have to go. No, that was bad. Ya blokes, that was even worse. I don't even know what I'm doing. English accent, not there today. But just now they got to go play the Rams overseas. That's a tough game, and one where the Jags, especially because the Colts keep winning games, and the Colts are 5-1. I mean, you got to start. Now you got to keep up, because you look, the Chiefs are coming. They're 3-3. Now you're in that wild card spot. Now you beat the Chiefs, so actually you do have a tiebreaker over them. Huge win, still a big win. But you got to get it together. And if you beat the Rams, you then get a bye week, and then you get to play the Raiders. So this London game is going to be huge for whichever team wins, because then you get a bye week and a bad team. And then after that, it gets interesting. Texans, Chargers, Cardinals. Those are 3 really, really interesting games where if you are really a team that's a true contender, you win 2 of those, and you're in a really good spot. But with the Jags and what they look like today, just all the miscues, all the penalties in the offensive line just getting shedded and shredded, we shall see with them going forward if that Chiefs game was a mirage or if that's something they can really build on starting next week with the Rams. Well, also, by the way, top 4 D-line. They are 4th in sacks. So this is going to be a real test, and they need to get that running game solved ASAP.